Waitress warned the billionaire not to enter the car after hearing the guards speak German. Rain poured down in sheets that night, splattering against the glowing glass windows of the Grand Monarch Hotel, the kind of place where luxury whispered through marble halls and crystal chandeliers. Inside the dimly lit lobby, a young waitress named Emma stood by the counter, her apron soaked from rushing between tables, her tired eyes scanning the near-empty hall. But then, her gaze locked on something unusual. 3 men in black suits, speaking softly in a foreign tongue near the parking lot entrance. She didn't understand much, but one word froze her blood. Toten. She'd heard it before, in an old war movie her brother loved. It meant kill. At first she thought she misheard, but when one of the men looked toward the tall man in an expensive navy coat stepping out of the elevator, billionaire Alexander Hart, the CEO of one of the world's biggest tech firms, she knew she hadn't. Something terrible was about to happen. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Every story here reminds us that a small act of goodness can change a life forever. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to decide what to do. She was just a waitress, invisible to the kind of people who could buy the entire hotel with a single phone call. But something inside her wouldn't let her ignore what she'd heard. She saw Alexander walking toward the glass doors, his 2 guards trailing behind, speaking in low tones, the same men she had overheard. His car, a sleek black Mercedes, idled just outside under the rain, headlights cutting through the darkness like twin daggers. Emma dropped the tray she was holding. The sound of shattering glass made heads turn, but she didn't care. Her trembling hands clenched her apron as she ran toward the doors, slipping slightly on the wet tiles. "Sir, wait!" she called out, her voice sharp enough to cut through the storm. Everyone froze. The guards turned toward her with faces that hardened instantly, too quickly. That was when she knew she was right. Alexander looked confused as Emma rushed forward, breathless, eyes wide with desperation. "Don't get in." "That car," she whispered fiercely, barely loud enough for him to hear. The guards exchanged glances, one stepping forward with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes, asking her to step back. But Emma's fear broke all sense of hesitation. "They were talking about killing you," she blurted out, her voice trembling. The lobby went silent, the storm outside the only sound echoing around them. Alexander's expression darkened, not with anger, but with realization. He spoke a few words into his earpiece, and within moments, real security personnel came running from the elevators. The fake guards stiffened, their plan collapsing before their eyes. Within minutes they were restrained, weapons found hidden beneath their coats. The billionaire's life had been seconds away from ending, and it was saved by a drenched, trembling waitress earning barely enough to pay rent. But that night was only the beginning. Alexander could have thanked her with a handshake and gone back to his world of money and power, but he didn't. Instead, he waited until the police took statements, until Emma's shift ended, and offered her a ride home, in a different car, one he trusted. She hesitated, but he insisted. The drive was quiet at first, the rain easing into a soft drizzle, city lights reflecting in the puddles. When he finally spoke, his tone wasn't that of a billionaire, but of a man still shaken. He told her that he'd been receiving threats since announcing a charity program to expose corruption in one of his partner companies. The men who tried to kill him weren't random. They were part of something much darker, people who wanted to stop him from helping others. Emma listened, her heart aching at the thought that someone trying to do good could be targeted like that. She didn't know it yet, but that single night would change her life forever. The next morning, her small apartment was flooded with reporters, police requests, and people calling her a hero. But Emma didn't feel like one. She felt scared, overwhelmed, and more alone than ever. Her landlord told her that strangers had been asking about her, and she began to realize that her act of courage had also made her a target. She didn't sleep for 2 nights, jumping at every knock on the door. That was when Alexander appeared. Again, not as a billionaire in a suit, but as a man who genuinely cared. He told her that the people behind the attack were still being investigated and offered her protection until things settled. At first, she refused. She didn't want to feel like charity. But when her younger brother, the only family she had, left, came home terrified after someone followed him from school, she knew she couldn't refuse any longer. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself living temporarily in one of Alexander's guest houses, a mansion compared to her old apartment, but strangely warm. She helped around the place, making coffee, cooking, doing small things because she didn't know how to do nothing. Alexander, though busy, always made time to check in, to ask if she was okay. He learned that she'd dropped out of college to support her brother after their parents died in an accident. He saw something rare in her: resilience, compassion, and quiet strength. And Emma saw something unexpected in him: a man who, despite his wealth, was deeply lonely. His life had been built on deals and numbers, not connections, but in her presence he laughed more, talked more, and slowly began to rediscover the warmth he'd lost long ago. Then one evening, as the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, everything changed again. Alexander received a call that the people who tried to kill him had been connected to one of his own board members, a betrayal from within. He looked shattered when he hung up. Emma, without thinking, reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. That small act broke something inside him. Not weakness, but the wall he had built for years. He told her about how power had made him paranoid, how he trusted no one, and how he'd forgotten what simple kindness even looked like until she came along. Emma listened quietly, tears filling her eyes, realizing that the man she had saved wasn't just a billionaire. He was human, broken in ways money could never fix. Weeks later, Alexander announced publicly that he was stepping away from part of his empire to focus on a new foundation, one that would help underprivileged youth, single mothers, and struggling families. The press called it his redemption project, but Emma knew it was more than that. It was his way of honoring the woman who reminded him what life truly meant. He asked Emma to join as the head of community outreach, a position that would change hundreds of lives. She hesitated, saying she wasn't qualified, but he simply said, "You didn't need qualifications to save me that night. You just needed heart." Months passed, and what started as a night of fear turned into a bond of quiet trust and mutual respect. Emma rebuilt her life. Her brother went back to school, and Alexander found peace in purpose rather than profit. The two became symbols of something rare in a world obsessed with status, a reminder that kindness can exist even in the unlikeliest places. They didn't fall in love like in movies. Instead, they became something even deeper: two souls who found light through each other's pain. Years later, at a charity event where Emma was the guest of honor, a journalist asked her what she thought about the night she stopped a billionaire from getting into that car. She smiled softly, eyes glistening with emotion, and said, "That night taught me something. We don't need to be powerful to make a difference. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to speak when everyone else stays silent." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Let's spread stories that remind us that goodness still exists in this world, even in its darkest corners. And before you go, comment below what you would have done if you were in Emma's place that stormy night. Would you have had the courage to warn him? Because sometimes one voice of kindness can save a life.